that's the thing about this show. It's like, yes, I'll bring it up again. You have the spectacle, you have these, huge action sequences, most certainly, but they bring back the horror to it. It's more of a horror thriller in many of these episodes, and they do some creepy shit with this particular Terminator voiced by Timothy Olyphant. Like the first time that he speaks, it's actually to the children, that he is hunting down for nefarious purposes on the behalf of SkyNet. And it's a great sequence. It's atmospheric. It's claustrophobic, and like even how they present him, they're like leaning into like more of the creepy aspects of anime, where they have his eyes and he's got like derpy eyes. He never looks normal. Like from you immediately seems like there's something off about this guy, and they give him just the derpiest eyes, just walled-eyed constantly, and it looks off, but in a really good way. And like every line of dialogue that he gets like initially in the first, however many episodes until, towards the end where he speaks the most, which is actually really interesting what he is saying. But like every line that he gets, and I would say from the earliest episodes to like episode 7, it's always like really off-putting in a fantastic way. It's very creepy and ominous. So now, my friends, we can go ahead and we can move on to the next part of my show today. And I want to review Terminator Zero, the latest entry in the Terminator franchise and the newest Netflix anime series. So the Terminator franchise has not been doing very well over the last couple of decades. Although I have to say, Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles is certainly an exception to that. But in terms of the films, there hasn't been a good Terminator movie since Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say. Well over 30 years now at this point. 30 years ago. We've pretty much been given derivative versions of T2 for 3 decades now. With the most recent sequels, Genesis, as I like to say, and Dark Fate being the absolute worst entries in the series so far. Just pure fucking dreck. Now, I am a Terminator fan. And when I say that, I mean, like most people, I'm a fan of the first 2 films in the series. Maybe, there's a handful of good scenes or moments or like ideas that maybe weren't well executed in the other movies. But those movies, in my opinion, could all burn in a fire for all I care. However, I still thought the series had potential to tell more stories if they could finally move away from the John Connor of it all, the John Connor story, to re-embrace the horror aspects of the original film that were later abandoned in T2, and certainly the other entries in the franchise, to set a film or series, a Terminator series in another place, in another time, and do something actually new and inspired and refreshing. And thankfully, that has finally happened. It's finally happened with the new anime series from Mattson Tomlin and Production IG, the animation studio behind Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, which I recommend. But it happened with Terminator Zero. This show pretty much does everything that I and other Terminator fans have asked for years, for decades now. We get a new story that has nothing to do with John or Sarah Connor. It's set in a completely new location, Tokyo, Japan. It makes the Terminator scary and brutal, makes SkyNet scary again. It injects a lot of horror and disturbing sequences, a lot of body horror in this particular series. It gives us new storylines and concepts and characters, and manages to change up the aesthetic by switching mediums and telling this story in animation as an anime. The series initially focuses on this genius scientist named Malcom Lee and his family. Dr. Lee has knowledge of SkyNet, of Terminators, of Judgment Day, and they explain as to why he does. And he's created a new AI named Kokoro, who he hopes can battle or at the very least negotiate with SkyNet. Now, despite not involving the Connors or their various storylines in the sequels, the series is extremely reverent of the Terminator franchise and what came before in terms of the world building, the aesthetics, musical cues, and in themes, stuff like that. But what's so great about this show is that it doesn't regurgitate. It doesn't vomit up everything that has come before. Everything that we've seen. It doesn't crowbar in unnecessary references or lines, looking at you, Alien Romulus, in a vain attempt to elicit some sort of reaction from the audience, right? It's not dumb like that. Thankfully, it's smarter. It's smarter than that. And it's able to introduce new things that don't feel awkward. Matter of fact, they're exciting, and again, it's very refreshing. And you have like a whole cast of characters. You can watch this show either with the dubbed, the American or the English language voice actors, or you can watch it with the Japanese voice actors. I chose to watch it with the English language voice actors, and I thought it was great. The character of Malcom Lee kind of feels like an evolved character of Dyson from T2. It's like, what if we actually focused more on that individual? And so much of his story, which I don't want to go into too much details because it's we learn a lot more about him in the back half of this 8-episode series. And of course, 8 episodes, each episode is about between 22 and 25 minutes. But we learn a lot about him and the struggle that he has with this horrible knowledge of doomsday approaching, right? It's literally set a day before Judgment Day is supposed to happen. August 29th, 1997 is when SkyNet is supposed to launch, and it determines humanity as a fucking virus that needs to be purged, okay? And it unleashes the nuclear arsenal of multiple countries, mainly United States and Russia, and engulfs the world in nuclear hellfire, right? He knows all this. And he struggles with that, and he puts so much of himself into this rival of Skynet, what he hopes to be a rival, a deterrent to Skynet, which is Kokoro, who is voiced incredibly well by Rosaria Dawson, and they have these fantastic conversations throughout the series, philosophical debates about humanity. And if it is indeed worthy of saving, and they take some twists and turns of that, and it can get pretty brutal, and their conversations lead to some spectacular consequences. But I really liked his character quite a bit, and as you learn more about him, certainly in the back half of those episodes, those back four, you're like, oh wow, and you realize how he came to learn about Skynet and the Terminators, and this knowledge that he's just had for most of his life, and has gotten him to this point, I thought was great. And I also enjoy his children in the series as well. He has an older son, he has a daughter and a younger son, and I thought they did a great job of differentiating them. They're not just like carbon copy versions of each other. You have like Kenta, who is more like his father, who is more into robotics and has a very kind of black and white view of the world and of machines and things. And then you have his daughter Rika, who is more thoughtful, has a philosophical approach. And then you have Hiro, who's the fat kid, who is perhaps the most emotional of them all, and he loves candy, chat. But what's so great about these three kid characters is that they're not annoying. They're not precocious to the point where they constantly get themselves in trouble, where they certainly need to be rescued at some points just because of, what inevitably happens in the series. And when you got like a Terminator chasing after you, like that needs to happen. But they didn't get on my nerves. I didn't find them incredibly obnoxious. I understand like why they felt the way they did in particular scenes and why they're so steadfast in their convictions, and the fact that they kind of come from a broken family. Malcolm, he has this knowledge that he's been sitting with for years, for most of his life, and he met his wife, and we find out what happens to his wife, before the events of the series, and it's kind of like it's a broken family. It's a broken family he wants to keep together. But it's incredibly difficult because he knows what's coming. And so he's constantly going back and forth, like, trying to protect his family, but also trying to focus on his work the day before the world is supposed to end. And I thought that was great, and I liked the dynamic that the family had throughout the show. We're also introduced to a character named Masaki, who is Malcolm's housekeeper and is the babysitter to the 3 Lee children. Initially, she kind of comes off as this, very sensitive, very demure person, very shy, right? But we find out, we learn a lot more about her in the back half of those episodes, and I don't want to say too much, but she's one of my favorite characters in the show, and they do some excellent things with her, in my opinion. We're also introduced to Iko, who is this resistance soldier, part of one of the human resistance groups that we often have seen in the Terminator franchise before. And she came from the year 2022, and she's there to protect Malcolm and the kids from Terminator, but also to prevent the new AI that is supposed to rival SkyNet Kokoro. She's trying to prevent that thing from being launched, because it also has a role that plays in the post-apocalyptic future that is dominated by Terminators and, these rogue AI. And lastly, we have the Terminator itself, which, again, this is not like they're like, all right, we'll just use the likeness of Arnold Schwarzenegger again. No, it's very different this time. It's actually voiced by Timothy Olyphant. Now, it's not like he's speaking in every single episode, but when he is speaking, it's like, oh shit, why didn't you cast Timothy Olyphant as a Terminator years ago? He's perfect for it. Like, every line that they give him is great. Like, and that's the thing about this show. It's like, yes, I'll bring it up again. You have the spectacle, you have these huge action sequences, most certainly, but they bring back the horror to it. It's more of a horror thriller in many of these episodes, and they do some creepy shit with this particular Terminator voiced by Timothy Olyphant. Like, the first time that he speaks, it's actually to the children, that he is hunting down for nefarious purposes on the behalf of SkyNet. And it's a great sequence. It's atmospheric. It's claustrophobic, and even how they present him, they're leaning into more of the creepy aspects of anime, where they have his eyes, and he's got derpy eyes. He never looks normal. From you immediately seems like there's something off about this guy, and they give him just the derpiest eyes, just walled-eyed constantly, and it looks off, but in a really good way. And every line of dialogue that he gets initially in the first, however many episodes until, towards the end where he speaks the most, which is actually really interesting what he is saying. But every line that he gets, and I would say from the earliest episodes to episode 7, it's always really off-putting in a fantastic way. It's very creepy and ominous, and then they just do, there's references to the Terminator franchise in this show, but they're not the kind that feel terrible. It's not the type of references where they kind of hit you over the head with a particular line or anything, like that. It's stuff that you've parts of a Terminator that you've seen before, like how it acts and things, how it observes, aesthetics. It's aesthetic stuff, right? It's not super overt lines, And with him, they have how they present him and his aesthetics, you see from his perspective in the red and how he determines his targets, all that's there as it should be. But I like with his character, like he has to adapt to the location. Like Japan in itself is a character in this show. It's like we're going to a country that has outlawed, firearms for the most part. It's only used by certain, groups of people, like police and military forces right there, so, defense forces. And so it's like, what weapon can a Terminator use in a country where it's difficult to obtain weapons? And they do that with him. I don't even want to say what it is, but it was something really cool that we have not seen with a Terminator before, and I liked it a lot. And what his new custom weapon is that he adds to himself, it's really fucking gross and weird, and it's used in graphic, terrifying fashion, and leads to some great body horror and some really disturbing kills in it. And I really love that. I'm not going to say what it is, because I want that to be a surprise for you guys and get your reactions from it, of course. But really like what they did with his Terminator. And there's like some other gross body horror stuff. Like, at one point he even looks like a ghoul, like his whole outfit that he wears, and all I'll say is he gets a little friend at one point. It's very creepy what he does with that little friend. But yeah, I really appreciate what they did with the Terminator and Timothy Olyphant's performance, such as it is when he is speaking in as the Terminator. I thought was great. But yeah, Japan as a character is wonderful. I love just like, the fact that this place doesn't really have a lot of guns. How do we go about obtaining weapons to fight against Terminators and maybe another robotic enemy that's featured, in this series. But as I said this before, horror just plays a big role in this show. There are so many sequences where our characters are like backed up into a corner, or they're trapped and they have to figure a way out, and it really usually comes at a cost, mostly their body parts. And I thought that was really cool. Like, they really do bring back the horror from the original Terminator to this show. But at the same time, they do have, grand, glorious spectacle. Like in episode 1, you have like one of the main leads having to go up against this Terminator that's using this giant, minigun, and is flipping around the room and doing all that crazy stuff, right? You have one where they have to fight against a Terminator. He's like dual wielding giant sniper rifles. Like, you do get that. You do have some of that T2 stuff, but I appreciated the more grounded horror action sequences, because they were kind of adhering to the sensibilities of the first film, which I feel like were abandoned for the rest of the franchise. Like, as much as I love T2 is a great film, and one of the seminal action movies of the 90s, and it deserves all of its credit, all of its accolades and things, and it just didn't do the same thing that T1 did, which I appreciate. That's what Cameron does with a lot of his sequels. I'm just not going to do the same thing over again, which I think is great. But one thing I do regret is one thing I'm disappointed by is that all the sequels that came afterwards were just derivative versions of T2. This is them trying to do T2 again, and they didn't lean into the horror aspects of the original film, which this one finally brings that back, and I think that's great. I think that's really, really cool, because it was needed, it was necessary. It'd been too long. It'd been 40 fucking years since that. They finally brought it back after 40 goddamn years. Now, if I have any criticisms of the show, it's that they do cut corners. Occasionally when it comes to the animation, sadly. They do use CGI for a number of scenes. Some which are like big moments, other times where it's just like people walking around, they just use CGI. It's like you clearly just switch from a 2D model to like a CGI model, 3D CGI model. It looks like that looked off. And it's just probably so they can get the show out sooner. And it's noticeable. And it just doesn't look as good as the 2D animation. And so like that's like the one thing like coming away from the show is like, I probably could have waited, if they just wanted to just make it all traditional 2D animation. I think that would have been fine with me. But, despite that, this show does have a number of great animated set pieces, action sequences, spectacle, horror sequences, as I brought up before, like all that's unfolds. A lot of nasty, gross body horror, chap. A lot of people losing limbs, heads, body parts exploding. One poor schmuck's hand is horrifically crushed. Looks like a water balloon. It's like, and when it happens, it's shocking and it's gross. But at the same time, this series, it delivers what the rest of the film franchise couldn't deliver for over 30 years, and that's a good story. And that's good characters. And that's new ideas that are well executed in the end. And I walked away from this show, aside from my issues with the 3D animation that's used, really enjoying it and excited for certainly a second season, which they do set it up for. I mean, they have to, I feel like, and I hope this is a success for Netflix, and they do continue on with this show. I think it's great. And if you are a fan of the original 2 Terminator films, if you also like, anime in general, but if you like the works of production IG, if you liked, their Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, then I think you'll walk away really appreciating and enjoying this show, and finally having to embrace the horror aspects of Terminator again, but also not being afraid of doing something new and not regurgitating the fucking Connors of it all. That's what I really liked about this show. But what about you guys? I'm actually very curious. Did anyone check this show out over the Labor Day weekend? I watched it with my girlfriend Katria. We watched it together over the course of a couple of days. Both really enjoyed it. Did you like it as much as I did? Were you more mixed on it, or did you downright hate it? Were you thinking like, you know what, Terminator Genesis and Dark Fate, that's the best of the franchise. That's why I want more. Let me know.
5 minutes later.
I'm actually very curious to hear your thoughts on this. Dejigui says, here is the most normal kid. He really is. He's just like, I just want to eat candy. That's all I want to do. This Terminator, he is very creepy. Like as soon as you're just like, yeah, there's something off about this guy. Like how he interacts with the kids, his derpy, wall-eyed expression. Deputy Oliphant, yeah, he plays this Terminator so terrible. He does a great job. When he is voicing him. It's very good. He's mostly silent, but when he does speak, it's meaningful, it's impactful, and there's a reason for it. And it works every time. There's not like a moment where his voice acting like doesn't fit the scene. It's like, yep, they used him just enough. And it makes me like, man, again, like they could have, I'll tell you this. I'm glad that the show is what it is and that it's an anime. I think that's cool. I think it's great to experiment with it, like especially a franchise that has not done well in whatever medium. Change up the medium, right? And I think they do that for the most part to great effect with this as an anime, right? As an animated show. But you could have also told this story in live action. You could have probably done it as a movie or a live action series, and it would have worked just as well. And it's like, God damn, it would have been so cool to see. It's not to say they can't, but it'd be cool to have like Timothy Olyphant as a fucking Terminator. Hell yeah, right? I think that would be awesome. He just sounds chilling. He does a very wall-eyed look, but I love it. I love his wall-eyed look. It was very different, but it was good. Well, I complain about Terminator's years. I wish that Tilly Valentine had more dialogue. And you know what? I totally understand that. I think it would have been cool, but like when he does speak, I think it is like, since there's so much time between, it's very impactful. But I can understand that critique. I think that's, yeah, I can see that. I totally understand. Or like 3 when fucking Dr. Silverman just shows up randomly, talk about the come with me if you want. Yeah, shit like that. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. Like, and I'm so glad they don't. I'm so happy. I think SkyNet might be kind of dumb, but Terminators stick out a lot. I'm going to send a 6'2" Terminator with an Austrian to 97. Yeah, with an Austrian accent to 97 LA. I'm going to send a 6'2" white cowboy to Tokyo. I think though for this Terminator, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's Japanese, right? I think he's supposed to be Japanese. It's just that he happens to be voiced by Timothy Olyphant, who is not Japanese. But I think he's supposed to be like a Japanese man. And it made me go thinking like, oh, what actor? What actor would make a fucking excellent Terminator? And the person that I had in mind that I think would be perfect for the show. And they actually have had a pretty fantastic career. Playing like, badasses and assassins and things. And that's Hiroyuki Sanada, who most recently is coming off of Shogun, who played Lord Toranaga. I think he would be if you wanted to cast like a Terminator movie and set in Japan, there's your goddamn Terminator. Get Sanada in that. I think that would be great. Even people say he might be a little older, but I'm like, I don't give a shit. That's fine with me. I think that's really cool. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the model is supposed to be Japanese. So let's go. Yeah, saw 2 episodes tonight, and it was mighty impressive. Nice. It gets even better, man. It gets even better. Biggie Smith says, I've been enjoying so far. Ditching with the English dub made Masaki a lot more harder and confrontational. Maybe the Japanese dub early on. I think some of the translation might get lost or possibly improved in translation. I didn't watch the sub version. Excuse me. I've only watched the dub version, or the English language, and it worked for me. Casey, I watched the first 2 episodes, but you're right. G does have those scenes where she gets a lot fucking harder. It's like, oh shit, it's noticeable. I watched the first 2 episodes. I'm kind of mixed on it, says Casey, but I love the new approach, and I love Timothy Oliphant's Terminator. You know what, Casey? I can understand that. Give it some more episodes, because I feel like in the back half, that's when it's like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm all about this. Like, I think, maybe it's a little slow in the first couple, but there's going to be a point where you'll be like, oh, shit. I think you're going to like it. But I love the new approach, and I love Timothy Oliphant's Terminator. Agreed. I watched Japanese dubs, but the subs were definitely for the English dub, as they were kind of wrong. Something fair enough. Was laughing hard watching the cute robots rise up. Yeah. There is another. Again, you do have Kokoro, who is the new kind of AI that's meant to rival, battle, possibly negotiate with SkyNet, and there is another robots in the show. And I don't want to say too much about them, but yeah, they do rise up. And they're, despite their cute look, they're nothing to fuck with, because they will fuck you up. I'm excited to see what other body horror they can do in the series, but man, I hate the 3D animation when they go, I know. That's my biggest criticism of the show. It's like, I wish they wouldn't do that. And I know why they do it, because it's to cut corners so they can get out faster. It's cheaper, and I'm just like, Yeah, this Terminator is Japanese. He just happens to be voiced by a white guy. I think that's what it is. Darth Sexy would be good casting for Terminator. Darth Sexy. Adam Driver? Yeah, he could pull off a Terminator. That'd be kind of fun for him to play. I can see him that day. Oh, fuck yeah, Sonata would be cool. Yeah, I think he would kill it. I mean, literally would. He's supposed to be Japanese. Of his blonde hair, he's like Ryuji and Yakuza. And Kiwami, too. Thank you, Casey, for the context. Heard discourse about how this series may have accidentally downplayed what Sarah and John did. Thoughts on that? If I say what that is, I mean, it's kind of like I know what they do. I do know what they do in the thing is, for me, I've gotten to a point with Sarah and John Connor where I just kind of don't care because everything, like the whole franchise is about them. And I feel like the fact that it's been about them, that it's been a detriment to the series now, because really, like, everything with them was kind of like figured out by 2, right? Like, they had their happy ending. It's like, okay, it's all done. We can move on. I mean, really, the franchise could end there. Most certainly it could, no doubt. But then it's like, but I think you can tell other stories. They do something. They do state something about time travel that instantly made me think of another anime that has also dealt with time travel. And I don't exactly want to say, I mean, it's kind of a spoiler, but it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me because, for one, I just feel like what they've been doing with John and Sarah Connor for decades now, ever since really T3 onward, it just hasn't worked. Although, to be fair, the Sarah Connor Chronicles are an exception to that rule. But I just don't. It didn't bother me. I was like, it's okay. That was their story. That's, I really don't want to say what it is. But yeah, just to answer your question, Isaac, I guess I can see why some people would be bothered by that. But I mean, I'd be like, so do you really still just want to keep bringing up the John and Sarah Connor of it all? It's just like they had their story. Their story is done. We can move on. They got a happy ending. I think that's great, and I'm not really bothered by it. What they established in regards to time travel, I was like, it's fine. I was okay with it. Thought it wasn't interesting to see post Judgment Day in Japan. Me too. But the dub plays it out like it's in the States. Very minor gripe. Oh, it does? Oh, really? Oh, I guess I didn't really notice that. Oh, because, well, I mean, we see Judgment Day across, like, the planet, as far as I know. But I didn't really like that. I mean, they established, like, instantly that it's in Japan. I mean, they say, like, the American and the Russian nuclear arsenals are taken over by SkyNet and launches global catastrophe. But I guess I didn't really I didn't read it like it was taking place in the States. Like, I feel like they're really, like, it's obvious by the first episode that it's in Japan. But Fair enough. But yeah, no, I really loved it. I really loved it. And the thing with it does the time travel, I'm like, cool. If anything, I'll tell you this much. What they established with time travel in this show, I'm like, good, then we don't have to fucking deal with John and Sarah again. Because I don't want to. I don't want to do that anymore. Let's do something new. And it also gives them a way to do more Terminator stories with new characters after the Terminator Zero story is done. I'm like, cool, let's keep doing that. I have no issue with that whatsoever. So if people are mad about that, I'm like, well, I rather they do what I'm glad they did what they did instead of just making more derivative bullshit with these shitty Terminator movies, which they've been making, for 30 years. So I'm cool. I'm cool with what they established. I'm like, good. I'm glad they did it, actually. I'm fucking glad they did it. Let me see what you guys think. Yeah, I'm watching the sub versus dub as Timothy. Yeah, it says I'd recommend the dub, Tommy. Listen, I haven't watched the sub to be fair, but the dub's really good. Tenabo Asano, who was the one samurai in Shogun, constantly trying to play both. Oh, I fucking love that guy. Yeah. He's my favorite character, trying to play both sides. He would be great. He would make a really good Terminator. Yeah. Also, if you want to give him like a little more of a personality, you could do that. That would be wonderful. Oh, Acolyte's Darth Sexy. Oh, Manny Jacinto? Sure. He can pull it off. Yeah. Their story is done. It's been done to death, literally. Kevin and I was going to ask, have you seen the Sarah Connor Chronicles? I've seen a little bit of it. I've not seen, because that show was canceled, right? Before its time, sadly. I've seen a good amount of it, and I really liked it. I thought it was great. It's been years since I watched it, though. And apparently that show also introduces, like, another AI rival to SkyNet. And because I thought, like, oh, shit, like a rival AI, that's something, like, new. But apparently it was done, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. So it deserves the respect for introducing something new. I thought that was good. So, but, Zero does the same thing. But they execute it very well. It feels refreshing. So I like that. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. Yeah, exactly. I was like, you could do whatever you want with time travel. I'm cool with it. I want to see a fat Terminator would be pretty badass. So let's get a plus-size Terminator. Let's do it. Yeah, it would make sense, though. Wouldn't you want him to... that's like to Deadpool's point. Like, wouldn't you want, like, a Terminator to, like, truly blend in with whatever society it goes back to? Whatever time period. And, like, having a 6'2", however tall Arnold Schwarzenegger is, white, bodybuilder, Austrian with a very thick Austrian accent. Like, he would stick out in LA. or if they even, can you imagine that model in Japan? People are like, what the fuck, as soon as they see it. So yeah, no, I agree. I think it'd be kind of fun if they experimented with that, which I guess they kind of done in the movies to an extent, but not great in my opinion. I never capitalizing on it really. John and Sarah have been done to death to the point where they're just shoehorned in the movie. They don't need to be there. And it feels tired. It feels trite. It's like, can we just move on? This one does something different. And they establish something with time travel. I'm like, I'm fucking cool with that. It's like, cool. If that means that we don't have to see John and Sarah again, awesome. Let them rest. Let them sleep. Okay, let's move on. Let's do new things. That's what I wanted them. That's what people wanted them for so long. So if people are complaining like, it negates, it's like, it doesn't negate. That's their story happened. Their story happened, and they have a future that's going to be bright and beautiful, and that they can live out their lives peacefully with their families. Right? I think that's great. So I don't. They're establishing something new with this, and I'm totally cool with that. But at the same time, they're respectful of what came before. So. Personally, thought it was great to see all these events through fresh eyes. Agreed. Especially in a different part of the world. 100% agreed. I love that this was set in Japan. I thought that was such a great choice that we're just not in goddamn the United States again. Post-apocalyptic United States. Like, if this Judgment Day goes down, what's it like in different countries? What's it like for a Terminator to operate in a country we haven't seen before, like in Japan? And they bring that's brought up. Because in Japan, they have like these super heavy regulations in regards to firearms and guns. And it's like, they're not easily attainable. So what does a Terminator need to do to find guns? What does it need to do to itself to get a weapon? Now it's like, and they do that, and it's really cool and really creepy and gross. I love that. Would love for this to be some type of anthology. Yeah, they could do that. Yeah, I have no problem. I mean, they do set up for a season 2, which I'm hoping that we get. But yeah, in the future, go for it. The Robot Cat was actually John Connor. No! For that world, sure. I'll switch to the dub when I watch the rest of the I recommend. I really like the dub. My idea for the live-action Terminator movie is to go the same route as Aliens. Terminators. 100%. Great title, too. A squad of resistance fighters is sent back to stop a trio of Terminators sent back to kill the high-ranking members of the resistance. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm fine with that. Let's do it. Terminator of a Kawaii-made outfit. Yeah, well. Could Japan handle the chaos of a T-1000 would cause? Honestly, fine with the T-800 being the main turn. Oh, yeah, I was fine with that. They want the classics. I'm sure, like, in Season 2, we'll see other Terminators. We'll see a T-1000. And what the anime did. I'm sure they'll do some great stuff if they do bring a T-1000. Lance Henriksen was Cameron's original. Yeah, that's right, for the Terminator. Mm-hmm. That would have been a completely different series, really. And he could have pulled it off, but funny enough, he wasn't cast as a Terminator, but then he cast him as a robot in Aliens. So there you go, as a bit of a makeup. And then birth, what is arguably the most iconic android synthetic character in the entire Alien franchise, Bishop. New fresh directions like this are what's called for. 100% Biggie Smith. Yeah. Person Man, thank you so much for resubscribing, Person Man. What do you think you're doing? I'm reviewing Terminator. Edgy Berserker, Kevin. Good to see you, Edgy. It'd be hilarious if Canada was ignored like an Independence Day. We just find out what happened in the world. We're like, damn. We're like, oh. Don't worry. We see a bird's eye view of what happens to Canada in Terminator Zero. we do see that. Many countries in the world. Which is pretty cool. But yeah, I think it would be awesome just to set different Terminator shows or movies in new countries, or different countries. I think that'd be great. That's what I want. Oh, we get fucked. It's fine. Yeah, yeah. Canada. Yes, Canada does pretty hard. Super nuked. Yeah, Canada gets super nuked. Although with the rest of the world as well. Most of the rest of the world. So there you go. But yeah, Chad, it's my review. That's my review for Terminator Zero. I really like the series a lot. As I said before, it's very refreshing. It's new. Yeah, but at the same time, it's reverent of what came before. Certainly of the aesthetics of the best films of the franchise, the first two, that is. But it charts its own path, and I really like that. It's what a lot of these kind of older franchises need. Terminator Zero, maybe not to the same extent as something like because I view it as that. But other people, they have like this dismissive view of television or animation, which I think is very ignorant and arrogant. But Terminator Zero to me is what Prey is for the Predator franchise, what Alien Romulus somewhat is for the Alien franchise. At least for a lot of people, I feel like this is what this could be for this franchise. It's needed. It's really needed. Because so many of the recent films have just been hurting it over time. And I'm hoping this leads to better Terminator content. And certainly another season of Zero, at the very least another season, and hopefully, you get some filmmakers in there where the powers that be at Paramount, they go like, oh shit, maybe we should truly do something new with this franchise. We'll see. Hope for the best, but I really liked it a lot. Animation haters cheating themselves out of good. They really are. I just don't get it. Well, you just have so many of these like filmmakers, that like look down on television animation. I'm just like, why? It doesn't make any sense to me. Just because it's a different medium doesn't make it any lesser. But it's just that perception, and it's very ignorant and very arrogant. I never liked it. So I agree with you, Biggie Smith. Do you want a season 2 to follow up this story? It was just enough for now. I want them to follow up with this story. There's still stuff there's still stuff that's left unturned, and I would like a season, at least a season 2. If they can wrap it up in season 2, then cool. And they want to move on to more things, then be my guest. But yeah, I want this story to continue on right now. SkyNet went out of its way to nuke Canada because it knew how dangerous they were. Nearly half of the Geneva Conventions are due to Canada. There it is. It was like, we got to take them off the map quick. Don't worry, Canada was taken off the map quick. Very, very quickly. Very quickly. Oh man, a lot of people still think animations are babies, and then if it is adult, it's all dirty jokes. Yeah, exactly. They think when you say adult animation, they think of like Family Guy or something, and it's not that. Like Terminator is adult animation, but yeah, it's not like it's like a R-rated raunchy comedy. No, like there's humor in it, but it's well used in my opinion. Yeah, it's great. And I wish the United States and the West had the same perception of animation that like Japan and South Korea and other East Asian countries. It's just another medium to tell stories in. It can be for children, but it can also be for adults. It could be for anything in between, right? I like that perception a lot. It's very forward thinking, progressive thinking. I wish there was like more mainstream adult animated films that are theatrical. I think that would be awesome. But yeah, I hope people give this a chance. I recommend it. When Tim Hortons coffee machines attack, that would be my Judgment Day. I fucking love Tim Hortons. Every time I go back to Buffalo, New York, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, Tim Hortons, give me my iced cappuccino, baby. It's so delicious and sweet. It just gives me enough pep in my step in the mornings. I love it. Canuck was Canute. Put that on a poster. Bum, 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 bum. Also, the music in this show, I neglected to mention the music. The music is great. The music is very good. They definitely have the Terminator theme in there, but it's not like so obvious where they played every other goddamn minute. They do their own variation on it, and it's really goddamn good. It's really good. I really loved it a lot. There's a lot of synth in it too. Shit, I love my synth. So I was like, yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, the music is, I've neglected to mention the music. The music is very good in this show. I actually used some of it in my short. It was great. Yeah, they mix in some of the classic notes. Yep, agreed. And then the ice cap machine eats your arm, blends in refreshing beverage. I'm so good. I'm so tasty and flavorful. Oh Lord, no more thoughts here. Yeah, I don't want to get into spoilers at this point. Yeah, I was kind of like tiptoeing around certain things, but I recommend it. Yeah, check it out.